Nicodemo, Little Nicky, Scarfo, March 8, 1929 to January 13, 2017, was an infamous American mobster and the boss of the Philadelphia crime family. His life was marked by extreme violence, numerous murders, and his eventual downfall. Scarfo's career in organized crime spanned several decades, during which he built a reputation for ruthlessness, leading the Philadelphia Mafia during one of its most violent periods. Here's a detailed look at his life across various cities in America. Early life in Brooklyn, New York. Scarfo was born in Brooklyn, New York, to Italian immigrant parents from Calabria, Italy. He grew up in an environment that had already exposed him to the mafia world. In his early years, Scarfo wasn't particularly powerful or influential. He was a small-time boxer, but his ambition always leaned toward the life of organized crime. Atlantic City, New Jersey, rise to power. In the 1950s, Scarfo moved to Philadelphia, but his life became most notable after relocating to Atlantic City, New Jersey, in the 1960s. His initial role was a low-level enforcer for the Philadelphia crime family, which was then run by Angelo Bruno. Scarfo's ruthless demeanor began to attract attention during this time. In the early 1970s, Atlantic City legalized casino gambling, and this dramatically increased opportunities for organized crime. Scarfo became involved in extortion, loan sharking, and labor racketeering, particularly focusing on the unions involved in the construction of casinos. This marked his first major steps toward power. Scarfo's big break came in 1980 after the assassination of Philadelphia boss Angelo Bruno. Scarfo, along with others in the Philadelphia mob, saw this as an opportunity to seize control of the lucrative underworld. After a period of internal conflict and power struggles, Scarfo became the boss of the Philadelphia crime family in 1981. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, reign of terror. When Scarfo became the boss, his leadership was marked by extreme violence. He was notorious for his paranoia and lack of trust, ordering the murders of both rivals and members of his own organization. His reign was a departure from the more diplomatic leadership of his predecessors, like Bruno, who avoided unnecessary violence. Under Scarfo, Philadelphia became one of the most violent mafia families in America. Some of his most infamous acts of violence include the murder of Salvatore Testa, 1984. Testa was once one of Scarfo's most trusted lieutenants. However, after Testa gained too much prominence and wealth, Scarfo ordered his execution out of jealousy. Frankie Flowers d'Alfonso, 1985. Scarfo also ordered the murder of the well-respected Philadelphia mobster Frankie Flowers, further consolidating his power. Harry the Hunchback Riccabene War, 1982 to 1984. Scarfo waged a bloody war against Harry Riccabene and his crew, resulting in many deaths. Riccabene refused to acknowledge Scarfo's leadership, sparking a brutal battle. The violence within the Philadelphia Mafia under Scarfo became so intense that it drew significant law enforcement attention, which would later contribute to his downfall. Miami, Florida. Expansion and Mafia activities. During the height of his power in the 1980s, Scarfo sought to expand the Philadelphia crime family's reach into Miami, Florida. Miami had become a hotbed of criminal activity during this time, largely due to drug trafficking and the rise of the Colombian cartels. Scarfo attempted to make inroads into Miami's criminal operations by forming alliances with other mob families and local criminals. He focused on gambling, narcotics, and extortion in the area. However, his brutal leadership style didn't work well outside of Philadelphia, and he failed to establish a lasting foothold in Miami. Las Vegas, Nevada. Casino connections. Scarfo also set his sights on Las Vegas, seeing an opportunity to capitalize on the casino industry, much like his operations in Atlantic City. His interest in Las Vegas stemmed from the mob's long-standing involvement in the casino business, dating back to the 1950s. Scarfo attempted to infiltrate Las Vegas casinos, using connections to various union officials and casino insiders. However, his time in Las Vegas was short-lived due to increasing law enforcement pressure and competition from more established mob families in the region. Legal troubles and prison. Scarfo's downfall. By the mid-1980s, law enforcement had started focusing heavily on Scarfo's organization. Several members of his family were arrested, and some turned state's witnesses, providing damning testimony against Scarfo. In 1988, Scarfo was convicted of multiple murders, racketeering, and extortion charges. He was sentenced to 55 years in prison. His violent leadership style had alienated many of his subordinates, leading to betrayals and informants helping the FBI dismantle the organization. While imprisoned, Scarfo continued to attempt to control his criminal empire through his son, Nicodemo Scarfo Jr., who tried to take over but never reached his father's level of influence. Later years and death. Scarfo remained imprisoned until his death on January 13, 2017, at the age of 87. He died at the Federal Medical Center in Butner, North Carolina, due to natural causes. By the time of his death, the Philadelphia crime family had been weakened, and much of its power had faded. Scarfo's brutal and violent leadership had ultimately led to the family's downfall. Documentaries and cultural impact. Scarfo's reign as the head of the Philadelphia Mafia has been the subject of several books and documentaries. His violent rise to power, paranoia, and brutal leadership made him one of the most notorious mob bosses in American history. Mobsters, Nicodemo Scarfo, documentary series. This documentary, part of the Mobsters series, details Scarfo's life, focusing on his rise to power, violent reign, and eventual downfall. It highlights how his extreme brutality made him feared within his organization but ultimately led to his demise. Scarfo, the Mafia's Man of Mayhem, documentary. This film covers Scarfo's impact on Philadelphia and Atlantic City, focusing on his key murders and his involvement in the casino industry. Through interviews with law enforcement officials, former mob associates, and journalists, these documentaries provide an in-depth look into Scarfo's criminal empire, his personality, and the web of murders that marked his leadership. Scarfo's life serves as a cautionary tale of how power, violence, and greed within organized crime can eventually lead to self-destruction. Despite his ambition, his inability to temper his violent tendencies hastened his fall, making him one of the most feared and hated mobsters of his time. Thanks for tuning into NICKY True Crime Docs. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more captivating tales. Your support helps us keep bringing these stories to life. See you in the next episode.